Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here. Yes, the intros are back. I have seen all of the comments. I did want to try and make the intros a little more professional, but it seems that was not something people enjoyed, so the old intros will be returning. And in today's video, we're taking a look at a trainer who's found a very spicy yet interesting meta core breaker, and that is a Great League Kanto Articuno. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, MakiDK, so many thanks for the battle submission. And they pair up Articuno with a Primeape and a Shadow Quagsire and are able to go quite positive. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and Maki's off to a great start in game number 1, Articuno into Shadow Marowak. Opponent safe switches into Dugong, and that will swiftly be answered with Primeape. Primeape can survive an Icy Wind, although it will do a considerable amount of damage. Primeape farming up quite a bit, going to go for a Rage Fist bait, anticipating the opponent will give up a shield. The opponent is going to shield, and now they're going to have to deal with a boosted Primeape. Primeape baiting again. Will we see both shields? Yes, we will. Primeape is going to make one final Rage Fist. This is +2. It will not knock out, but that's going to deal quite a bit of damage to the Dugong. So Dugong is able to flip switch, but in doing so, they had to give up both shields and lose almost all of their HP. Icy Wind is going to connect. Quagsire going to be hit with another charge attack, and Maki is saving the shields in this match for Articuno. Can a Quagsire farm down occur here? No, we're going to see a simultaneous switch out. Articuno into the Marowak. Marowak unable to make the rock slide before the Icy Wind is reached. We're going to see an undercharge by Maki on the Icy Wind, wanting to exit this matchup with energy available on the Articuno. So Articuno is going to be shielding up the rock slide, exits with energy. And now, what does the opponent have in the back as their final Pokemon? We know they still have a very low health Dugong available. In comes the Dugong going for the Icy Wind, and Articuno is going to no shield as this will only hit for neutral. In the back is going to be Corviknight, and Corviknight's going to struggle here. Sand attacks are double resisted, and Articuno gets to consistently apply neutral damage. There's a quick switch back into the Quagsire, firing off the Stone Edge. That's going to get them low, and all the Quagsire energy stored from earlier comes to magnificent use as Corviknight just gets absolutely combo played out of existence, and that is a good game. Tough opponent in the next match, going up against Inadequates, and we actually have the battle of the Kanto legendary birds, Articuno versus Zapdos. Zapdos is going to farm up to a Thunderbolt, and that is going to immediately grab a shield from the Articuno. Articuno now going for the Icy Wind. Icy Wind will easily KO unless Inadequates decides to match shields, but Inadequates lets it go. He brings in Bibarel. We now see a pivot to Shadow Quagsire. Shadow Quagsire farming up quite a bit. Can survive any one move here from Bibarel, but Hyper Fang or Surf will inflict some serious damage. Shadow Quagsire opting for a bait, going for the Aqua Tail, and that is a very unfortunate bait call from the opponent, as now the entire Quagsire gets removed from the field of play. Going to wait down the switch timer and then look to try and sweep with Primeape. In comes Primeape in the back. He's going to be Shadow Annihilate, and this is going to be a massive problem. Shadow Annihilate, a terrifying Pokemon to deal with. We're going to see a switch to Articuno. Articuno is going to no shield, hoping that it can hang on here. Rage Fist connects. The Articuno hangs on 1 HP, able to get the Icy Wind. The Icy Wind no shielded by the Annihilate, and unfortunately, Primeape is just going to get countered down here as Primeape is unable to get the back-to-back Rage Fist. So, in the battle of the Kanto legendary birds, it's Inadequates who's able to get the win. We've got a Charmer on the lead from the opponent in the next match, leading Articuno into Wigglytuff. Obviously can't switch out with the Primeape in the back, so just going to stay in with the Articuno and play it out. Now Articuno, definitely on the spicier side of things, so more of a pick for fun than for climbing. This battler did mention in the notes they were able to go quite positive with the team, but still with something as spicy as Articuno, I do feel like I still want to make that disclaimer. Articuno going to get itself as low as possible before Icy Winding to try and limit the amount of charms that the opponent is going to get, and now you can just bring in Shadow Quagsire. Opponent farms up a ton, the perfect overfarm, and they will unleash some heavily debuffed energy. Icy Wind into the Quagsire. Quagsire's very okay with that. Quagsire looking for the farm down, gets the farm down. This energy is debuffed, however, so now we see a pivot out into Primeape. In the back, his Drifblim, and oh my goodness, Primeape is going to be able to put in some serious work here. Rage Fist is going to connect. That does significant damage. This next Rage Fist will be able to pick up the knockout. Rage Fist is going to be shielded by the Drifblim. Drifblim going for the Icy Wind. And you have 2 shields, so the question is, where do you use them? Going to use the shield here. Primeape firing off the Rage Fist. This is still going to be 1 stage boosted, so it is going to be able to pick up the KO. Gastrodon gets the farm down, but Quagsire just has so much loaded energy, all the way up to 100, which means this opponent is about to get absolutely cooked by the amount of Aqua Tails this Quagsire has. Aqua Tail number 2 lands, and there's Aqua Tail number 3 for good measure. This poor Gastrodon having a terrible day at the beach as it just gets completely overwhelmed by Aqua Tails, and that's a good game. We move to the next match. Articuno, Shadow Steelix, terrible lead, safe switch Primeape, answered with Drifblim. Drifblim appearing to be common in these sets, and it's not a particularly strong counter switch to Primeape, because Primeape can really boost itself up and inflict some serious damage and generate an advantage in this matchup. Rage Fist shielded up by the Drifblim, Drifblim going for the Icy Wind, and we're going to see a no shield now as Articuno looks to try and get a pretty significant farm down. Shadow Ball will add up, the opponent firing off energy, Articuno with a very comfortable no shield as they only end up going for the Icy Wind. Articuno now gets to exit with energy and try and sweep with the Quagsire in the back. There's a Medicham. What season is this? Why is there a Medicham here? Medicham, even with the Ice Punch buff, doesn't really do much of anything in the Open Great League. As counter, the pacing on it is really not great. The reason why Annihilape is still so strong is because Annihilape was given access to Rage Fist and has a Shadow, so it's able to boost up its damage, overwhelm, whereas Medicham doesn't really have the same ability to do so, because even though Power Punch is a boosting move, it's a significantly worse move than Rage Fist. We're going to see the final shield used by the Quagsire as Medicham will go for the Ice Punch. There's a switch to Steelix, but Steelix is going to lose the CMP tie. It's the 4 cycle from Quagsire. Aqua Tail connects, and that is devastating for the opponent. A miscount on their part, and that's going to cost them dearly. In comes Articuno, firing off the Icy Wind, taking super effective damage from the Thunderfangs. Icy Wind is going to pick up the KO. In comes Medicham, and Articuno is going to clutch the win in this matchup as Articuno KOs a Steelix and a Medicham back-to-back to secure that victory. Moving into the next match, Articuno on the lead into a regular Drapion. This is a very poor lead for the Articuno. We're now going to see a safe switch into Primeape, but Primeape does not do well here. Primeape is going to no-shield the Aqua Tail, but that does quite a lot of damage. Annihilape is far better against Drapion due to the fact that Poison Stings do not do a lot of damage to the Annihilape due to the Ghost subtyping. But opponent switches out, they send in Goodra. Goodra now going to be hit with a boosted close combat, and that is going to pressure a shield away from the opponent. In comes Articuno. Thunder Punch will add up here, it's super effective damage. Articuno with the no shield, and Goodra goes for an Aqua Tail. They don't go for the Thunder Punch. They're able to make one final charge attack, and we will see a no shield from the Articuno. Articuno barely hanging on 1 HP. In the back is Azumarill, and Shadow Quagsire up a shield, and with 1 charge attack left on a 1 HP Articuno, is going to have to try and sweep this game. Quagsire is going to go for the Stone Edge. Where will the opponent use their shield? They use it here, and they get the shield call correct. That is tough news for the Quagsire. Quagsire going for the Stone Edge. Stone Edge is now going to connect on the shieldless Azumarill. But honestly, I think the Quagsire might be getting outpaced here. That Stone Edge was not thrown on perfect timing. Here is the Drapion switch in, but Drapion is not in Aqua Tail range. We will need to see a combo play with the move from the Articuno. We do, but now I think the Azumarill is going to be able to bubble down the Articuno and take the win. But no, they actually survived the Icy Wind, so that's actually not going to be a factor. They're able to land a crunch. That gets a defense drop, and the Quagsire will get bubbled down. So there was a little bit of hope for a second, but unfortunately the Drapion surviving that Icy Wind on 1 HP was very unfortunate. Great lead, Articuno into Shadow Marowak. Opponent safe switches into Clodsire, gonna bank some energy and send in Quagsire. So in the battle of the 2 Sire Pokemon, of course, Clodsire going to be at a massive disadvantage. These Mud Shots are absolutely shredding at the back-to-back Aqua Tails already. Aqua Tail number 1 is going to connect. overfarming and playing to the CMP tie. Very nice counting by our battler as they're going to deny that energy and pick up the KO. And now the Quagsire does have residual energy, which means it's going to make an Aqua Tail versus the Marowak. This is not lethal. The opponent can no shield, but it does a ton of damage. Aggressive switch to Articuno. In the back is Dunsparce. Oh no. These rollouts are going to be absolutely shredding. This is double super effective damage onto the Articuno. Articuno is going to be hit with the Rock Slide, and we now see the no shield from the Articuno, as Articuno actually lived that. I was not expecting Articuno to survive, but at this point, Primeape is in prime position, no pun intended, to completely sweep the endgame. The opponent's a -2. This drill run is going to do nothing, even against the very glassy Primeape. Opponent sends in the Marowak, and Marowak now is going to have to deal with Rage Fist from the Primeape. Primeape going for the Rage Fist, and it looks like the opponent may have just force closed their app, and it looks like they did exactly that. So they force closed it, so now the rest of the battle will play out in a little bit of slow motion, but Primeape is going to get a nice farm down. But the opponent at that point just realized there's absolutely not a single way to win that game, so they just end up closing out. Moving into the next match, absolute nightmare lead Articuno into Licky Licky. Looks like the game started a little bit late there, so some very weird visuals off the start. I don't think I've really seen that before. And the Primeape save switch is answered with Shadow Marowak. Shadow Marowak now going to have to deal with what's about to be a double boosted Primeape. These mud slaps add up quite substantially, but now Primeape is in a position where it can shield once, karate chop down, leave double boosted, and it's not even going to have to take a third mud slap. In comes Driplim, and flipping switch advantage is massive. The opponent has to give up a shield here. Double boosted Rage Fist is too threatening. They will get the Astonish farm down. In comes Articuno. This is only an Icy Wind. They did not try and bluff a Shadow Ball, and an Icy Wind is not going to be threatening whatsoever. In comes Licky Licky, answered with the Quagsire. That's not enough rollouts for a Solar Beam, so this is a very comfortable no shield for the Quagsire. It is going to be a Shadow Ball, however. Shadow Ball does do quite a bit of damage. The opponent now going to go for the Body Slam, and unfortunately, this Quagsire is now very, very low. Quagsire is going to return fire with the Aqua Tail. Licky Licky tanks that pretty comfortably, making it to Aqua Tail number 2. This does not KO, however. The opponent can choose to no shield if they'd like, and they do just that, barely surviving. You can shield to avoid a rollout landing on the Articuno, but Maki decides it's not worth the risk. Bringing back in the Articuno, but I think the fast move pressure from the Astonish and the rollouts is going to be too much. We're going to see a CMP tie and Articuno losing the CMP tie to Drifblim. That is honestly not something that I was expecting there. The Drifblim winning the cap tie, debuffing the Articuno, and the game will actually end in a tie as both players' final Pokemon are KO'd simultaneously. Hopping into the next match, and it's a very tough lead. Shadow Drapion not where you want to be as the Articuno or as the Primeape. Primeape is going to switch in down energy. Aqua Tail, I mean, it's from a Shadow Drapion. That's going to deal massive damage. Opponent switches in Corsola, but this Corsola is so far behind on energy. Primeape, I believe, is going to apply so much pressure in this matchup. Even if the opponent doesn't end up committing a shield, they've lost so much HP off that Corsola. And now this is potentially farm down range for this Articuno. Articuno is going to hit the field of play. Oh, tried to switch there, but unfortunately weak connection popped up. That's not what you're hoping to see whatsoever. Articuno now going to look for the farm down and able to make a very nice catch. If, unfortunately, the fast move was not denied there on switch in, then Articuno could have got the farm down and wouldn't have had to go for that catch. So, unfortunately, our battler at a disadvantage because of that lag there. We see weak connection coming through quite a bit and accidentally over farming and playing to a CMP tie that Quagsire does not win. And this game is tilting dangerously towards losing territory. What do they have in the back? They have Diggersby, and yeah, this game is going to be a loss, unfortunately. Aqua Tail into the Diggersby does get shielded. There's the switch over to the Articuno. Articuno can debuff, but super effective Fire Punch will still do too much damage to Articuno. It's going to be a CMP tie, so the Fire Punch has been debuffed, but it's going to inflict quite a lot of damage, and one Icy Wind will not be enough to knock out here. It's super effective damage, but this is an XL Diggersby we're talking about. Diggersby tanks the hit, undoes the debuff, and now is going to be able to pick up the KO. So smart gameplay there from the opponent. They're able to undo the debuffs, and Quagsire just doesn't have enough HP left in the tank to make a final Aqua Tail. Hopping into the final match, looking for a bit of redemption after that tie and a loss, and what a great lead to do so. Leading into Gastrodon, opponent is going to save switch into Shadow Typhlosion, and that's going to be swiftly answered with Quagsire. Quagsire Aqua Tail is going to be shielded. Look at the mud shots in this matchup. Mud shot adds up so much. Here you always shield respecting a Blast Burn. A Blast Burn could actually flip the matchup. A Thunder Punch, not particularly threatening. They do end up going for a Thunder Punch bait, as Thunder Punch is only 40 energy instead of Blast Burn's 50. They are actually going to let Typhlosion go and now bring in Gastrodon. Gastrodon Double Fire is a pretty common team, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a Talonflame in the back, and he's making that same read. He's saying, it's a Talonflame in the back, I'm saving the Quagsire. Earth Power rocks the Primate. Primate barely hanging on, making it to the close combat. Close combat is going to KO, and there it is. Talonflame as the final Pokemon. In comes Shadow Quagsire. Quagsire is now going to go for the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail does not KO, but it does some serious damage. Aqua Tail is going to be shielded. And now, oh my goodness, Articuno, no need to enter the field of play. Shadow Quagsire masterclass in this endgame, making the Stone Edge, picking up the one-hit KO. And that is a good game. All in all, I think using Kanto Articuno in the Great League, it's a very creative approach to team building, because a lot of the meta is weak to ice. But a problem a lot of the ice types have is, of course, if you're an ice type, you're very weak to stuff like Annihilate. So having an ice flying type where you're only taking neutral there, it's still not going to be a great matchup against Annihilate, but I think it's a very creative way to team build. And additionally, it positions Articuno in a unique core breaker role that a lot of teams are not prepared for, as teams are definitely going to be prepared for ice, but an ice flyer, meaning that their mud slapper is also not effective, is not something that a lot of teams are preparing for. Would I recommend this as a must-use open Great League Pokemon? Of course not. This is a spice pick, but I think it's a very well-positioned spice pick at the current moment. Granted, it's very difficult to have an Articuno low enough for the Great League. You have to have saved one from the research boxes, which I believe were last out in like 2018 to 2020. I did check my account, and unfortunately, I do not have a Great League eligible Articuno myself, so I'm very grateful that Maki was able to send in this footage, as otherwise we would have no way of seeing what this Pokemon could do. So overall, final verdict, definitely more of a pick for fun than for climbing, but if you well support it with meta Pokemon that can cover its weaknesses, you can, as Maki did, gain Elo with it. It's just not a Pokemon that I would rely on in any capacity to carry a team, if that makes sense. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.